Member of Parliament, Mrs. Heiliger, had a statement and a question. She stated that there are, at this particular moment, 3 persons registered as stateless. And she was asking how many persons are registered as onbekend. At this particular moment, we have 114 persons living in St. Martin registered as onbekend. Her second question was, how are same-sex marriages registered? How does the system support that? When individuals are married within the Dutch Kingdom or the EU countries, the Department of Civil Registry registers the submitted request once all required documents, including the D79 document being the immigration interview, are in order. The system is compatible with registering same-sex marriages in St. Martin. Her third question, for kids born in the United States with parents with Dutch citizenship, why is it that with renewal that a birth certificate is needed? Is that information not in the system already? All first-time passport applications must include a birth certificate, even if the individual was only recently registered in the basic administration. For all subsequent passport requests, a new birth certificate will not be required. This requirement applies only for the first-time application for a passport within the basic administration of our country. MP Duran had the following question. Mention was made that someone will not lose nationality if it will make them stateless. I'm aware of instances where persons have lost their nationality. What is done in cases like this? In St. Martin, there are until now no recorded cases where an individual became stateless solely due to the loss of Dutch nationality through the Department of Civil Registry. However, there are 3 noteworthy situations that I will like to discuss. The first one is the individual voluntarily renounced their nationality after losing Dutch nationality. There was a court hearing and the person lost the case. The second option is the individual failed to comply with the requirement to renounce their original nationality within 6 months of acquiring Dutch nationality. As a result, the END in the Netherlands issued a letter declaring that their Dutch nationality was considered never acquired. As a result, the IND in the Netherlands issued a letter that this was never acquired, as I say. Following this, the individual renounced their original nationality, thereby becoming stateless. The third option is an individual submitted a fraudulent school certificate during the naturalization process. Consequently, the IND revoked the grant of Dutch nationality. Since the individual had already renounced their previous nationality, they became stateless. The second question of MP Doran. St. Martin doesn't control nationality. What happens when they lose passport or ID cards? What are the safeguards in place? Can we then work on a policy? Is this being thought of? Is there any progress in this area? Clarity on a joint policy between AZ and Justice to safeguard persons in these cases to get ways and means of identification. In these cases, the Department of Civil Registry works closely with the Governor's Cabinet, also with policy advisors and the Justice Department. However, the individuals involved must be willing to cooperate also. Many cases have been resolved successfully thanks to the strong collaboration between these entities. It is important to note that there is no standardized policy for such situations, as each case is unique. In most instances, the individuals do not become stateless, but instead refuses to contact their respective authorities for assistance because they wish to retain the Dutch nationality, which is not possible without their active involvement. The department informs them that once they obtain a passport from their country or of origin, they will receive the proper assistance through the immigration process and subsequently guide them in submitting their request to the governor. It is a collaborative process that requires effort from both parties. Question number 3 from MP Duran. Only 3 being stateless is interesting. However, I have to trust the data. What do you advise for persons that don't have anything? What advice for persons in this situation? Will there be, for example, an amnesty for these cases? There are only, indeed, in this case, 3 persons in the basic administration of the Department of Civil Registry that are stateless. The department is of the opinion that an assessment should be conducted to determine the number of undocumented individuals in St. Martin due to loss of nationality or statelessness. The proposal is for this to be a collaborative effort between immigration and the civil registry to identify such cases. The Civil Registry, as an execution department, is responsible for implementing policies but does not have the authority to make policy decisions. The result of the mentioned assessment can indicate if an amnesty policy is needed. Currently, the question remains whether an amnesty policy is needed. Each case is unique, and in some instances, individuals may hold another nationality but are reluctant to contact their respective authorities. Question number 4. Persons born here or in Jamaica or from Jamaican parents or Haitian parents in certain instances where there is civil war. Where there is civil war, how does this work? Or any other part of the world? How are these things handled in general? Is leniency applicable given their current situation? Yes, leniency is considered in some cases depending on the situation. All relevant information is available on nederlandwereldwijd.nl, which provides details on whether a country is experiencing war, if a Dutch embassy is active in that country, and whether it is possible to obtain documents from there.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah, your social health insurances.
So my question relates basically to financial management within the ministry. We spoke that there were still expenditures from 2024 that seem not to have been settled. One of which I understand is there's a fairly large outstanding for pro bono lawyers still to be paid. And then sort of a tangent to that, a few years ago, the government purchased the Soramar building for around 2 million guilders. The idea, I understand, was to be a shooting range, a training facility, but yet you're renting other facilities rather than fixing or building on a building that was already intended for those types of purposes. So those are sort of budget questions, how you're managing the finances within the ministry.
Yep. With respect to the pro bono lawyers, indeed, we are still processing invoices. There's also, of course, the matter within government, where sometimes as justice we sign advices, we sign off, and then we think invoices are paid, but that doesn't go through our ministry. That's the Treasury, that's the Ministry of Finance. So sometimes I think it's something that that some of my other ministers have also seen. That again, we don't control the purse at the end of the day. We do have a budget, but we don't control when things are paid within the government. And these are issues that we run into recurringly, because of course then I guess in finance there's a decision of, do I make payroll or do I pay this? And choices have to be made on the other end, and those are things that we don't have insight into. Of course, we look at our budget and there's a budget post, so please pay it. But then different assessments are made in a different ministry. So I think that those are the realities that we all have to deal with. And I'm also in discussions to see how we can assure that recurring payments for the Ministry of Justice, the pro bono lawyers also is one that some lawyers are also behind on when they invoice, and then they invoice a very large amount at one point and they don't do a monthly invoicing, so they'll wait. And then of course that also gives liquidity issues sometimes within government as well, so that we kind of need to spread out the burden where that's concerned. That's the pro bono lawyers. As I said, for recurring payments, I'm also in discussion to see how we can improve things. For example, the Justice Ministry has large amounts that we contribute to the Common Court of Justice, to the Prosecutor's Office, to the Coast Guard, and these kinds of kingdom law institutions that we are obligated to be a part of and contribute to on a kingdom level. The experience has shown that a lot of times we are very, very, very late with paying these institutions that provide key critical services to this country. So I'm looking to see in discussion with finance, hey, if we know our contribution is 3 million this year, can we please just monthly, quarterly make sure that we're paying this, and not that, at one point in December, I suddenly have to make one payment for the entire year, because it's very difficult for these organizations to function as well in that way. And what we're seeing is a lot of times that they have to then use funds from our other islands, from Curacao, from the Netherlands, in order to subsidize St. Martin operations. And it's not a way that we should be functioning. So those are ways we're trying to do that. You asked me about the Soramar building. Indeed, I had also noticed a while back that they had cleared out the land there. I've seen that there are plans, but I think then we also have to be realistic sometimes in what we are able to do from a CapEx side of things as well, because to construct I think the idea was a Justice Academy, they were calling it at the time. Of course, you can make a Justice Academy as lofty and as great as you want, but I think we also have to be realistic, one, about the rentelost as we call it in Dutch, and what we are able to lend, or I should say to borrow as a country, and what we're allowed to from a CFT perspective and a budgetary perspective. And besides that, also, rent is one thing, but we have ideas for other things. But then operational costs also come into play. Maintenance costs come into play. One of the things I noticed is we're not very great at maintaining the things that we have either. So, all of this brings a budgetary strain as well. And when we're operating in an environment where our budgets are constantly being cut, I'm also trying to see from that budgetary stance what makes the most sense and how can I best manage what we have and make it work. We know that we have a new prison coming that's going to significantly exceed the OPEX of our current prison. So those are also operational costs that I'm trying to account for and take into account. So there's a lot of moving parts within justice, and at the end of the day, we have a budget problem and we have a capacity problem, and I think right now it's a balance of setting priorities and seeing what makes the most sense. And I would love to have to build something there, even a substation or so we can look at properly repairing our Philipsburg police station. But there's a lot of choices that we have to make, and especially when we're heavily investing in a new prison project, it leaves us with very limited room to be able to do something else.
So just a clarification question. Your effectiveness as a minister, so we talked about ministries in the past working in silos, right? Mm-hmm. But your effectiveness as a minister is going to be heavily impacted if you believe vendors, suppliers are being paid, but then it goes to another ministry and you never get feedback on that. So how do you solve this as it impacts your ministry?
Yep. For right now, I've tried with especially those key stakeholders. I'm really trying to do a lot of work at improving the working relationship, the relationships with these various justice chain partners and institutions, and have that short line of contact. So very much now we're trying to lay the groundwork of how can we ensure that everybody can operate effectively, and then also have those conversations with finance and within the Council of Ministers, that we have an understanding for the importance of each other's ministries. And I think that we're doing a good job so far with this Marcelina II cabinet in terms of really supporting each other's ministries and working together to achieve the common goal. I think that we're all very well aware that none of our ministries can stand without the strength and power of those around us.
Arrested immigrants that are placed in the police cells in Philipsburg. And deportees have to pay for their own ticket home. Some can't, and then they are held there sometimes up to 30 days or more, with the court then ordering to release people from from detention. What is your view on this? What is going to happen with the immigration detention and also with the police cells as a place for holding immigrants?
Yep. I'll speak in any case of since I've taken office. When it comes to the Foreigner Detention Center, also the report from the Raad voor de Rechtshandhaving, unfortunately, I haven't formally received it from them as yet, but I have also learned of the content of it, and I look forward to receiving it formally in due course. But when it comes to the Foreigner Detention Center, one of the things that I managed through an amendment on the floor of Parliament in mid-January when we had the public handling of the meeting was I managed to secure 6 additional staff for the Foreigner Detention Center, because right now we are severely understaffed there. So within the coming weeks, we're hoping to be able to hire these individuals. We have people already. It's just a matter of now the budget being approved so that we officially have the budget post so that national decrees can be signed off on. So we will have an additional 6 staff. When it comes to the building itself, I mentioned in the opening statements the VGT project, the Versterking Grenstoezicht. Within that project, there's actually 1 million guilders earmarked to repair and improve the Foreigner Detention Center during 2025. Of course, we are now in discussions of what is realistic within 2025, because of course, sometimes we don't realize how difficult it is to spend money, especially when you have to do procurement and all of these types of things. It takes time to spend funds. So of course, we're looking at what is really feasible and achievable within 2025, and also looking to see if we need to hire that expertise to be able to lead that project and put together a plan on what exactly it is that we need for the Foreigner Detention Center. But I expressed to the group a month ago already that to me it's a priority that we fix this facility. And especially, I think now we're seeing we need to also, I think, be aware of geopolitics and what is going on in the region around us. And when it comes to unrest in Haiti, when it comes to mass deportations from the United States potentially, and movement that we're seeing within the region, is that St. Martin at the end of the day is a hub for people to pass through and try to get to different parts of the world. And I think that we need to work on our border strengthening, our border protection. But knowing that, we also need to know that we need to have a humane space where we can keep foreigners. Since I've been in office, we haven't had any court cases with respect to any foreigners held in foreigner detention. In addition, we haven't had any foreigners being held in police cells. The only situations that we've had currently is, of course, if somebody is arrested by the police and picked up by the OM, this case is then looked into. That person is given a dagvaarding and a laissez-passer, as we call it, and then they are handed over to immigration in order for immigration to look into their residency status. If we do find that this person is illegal, we place them in foreigner detention, and then, of course, we do deport them. We do have, typically most people within a day or two are able to arrange a ticket for them to leave. However, in cases where somebody cannot, I actually just a couple of days ago signed off that we paid for the ticket of a young lady to go back to her country of origin. But of course, we want it to be that, we don't want to keep people in there for too long. We don't want to separate mothers from children. We do have, criteria that we try to stick to. And it's one of the reasons that I haven't mandated this authority when it comes to refusals, when it comes to deportation. I've chosen to still keep this coming to me, even though it makes it that I have immigration outside my house at 11 o'clock at night, or sometimes even after that, with cases, because I do want to look at these on a case-by-case basis, and I want to do the right thing by people, regardless of your country of origin. So it's one that I'm really doing on a case-by-case basis and assessing the need to put someone in foreigner detention and look at what options we have available and also how quickly we can send them out. But I think one of the other realities that we're facing is we have a very profitable and growing local airline in the form of Winair. But it also means that a lot of times I get stuck with country refusals from St. Kitts, from Tortola, and it is becoming a bigger issue for us. So it's one that we're trying to address together with them, together with immigration, work on our foreigner detention. So for me, it's a very high priority. And I think by the length of my and enthusiasm of my answer, you can tell that it's one that's close to my heart as well.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social health insurances.
Other big moves taken by the Trump administration, boosting fossil fuel development has been a priority. In a series of actions, President Trump is following through on his promise not just to ramp up oil and gas production, but to sharply curtail any effort to deal with climate change. William Brangham has been tracking this and joins us now. So, William, we've already seen major action these first 2 weeks on the Trump administration's energy policy. What are the biggest moves so far?
He has been going gangbusters, as my mom used to put it, on many fronts, myriad ways he's been doing this. He's been doing this through federal government agencies like the EPA, through his appointments, his cabinet secretaries at Energy and Interior, and through executive orders. A couple of examples. On day one, he declared an energy emergency, which basically tells every federal agency to do everything they can to ramp up oil and gas production on federal lands. Trump has also pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, the global treaty to bring down emissions. He's back out of that again. He's targeted Biden's push for electric vehicles. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's just been a lot of efforts to go on this front.
And we know that with President Trump, personnel is so often policy. Who are the people in his administration who are backing him up on this?
That's right. The argument that his cabinet secretaries and that he has been making all along is that the Biden administration held back domestic energy production. And we should say oil and gas production in America is at record highs right now, and it became so under the Biden administration. But all of Trump's cabinet picks argue that Biden didn't do enough on that front, and they promised to do differently. So that's Lee Zeldin at the EPA, that is Chris Wright at Energy, and that includes Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who described during his confirmation hearings how the Trump administration will do things differently.
When energy production is restricted in America, it doesn't reduce demand. It just shifts productions to countries like Russia and Iran, whose autocratic leaders not only don't care at all about the environment, but they use their revenues from energy sales to fund wars against us and our allies. President Trump's energy dominance vision will end those wars abroad, will make life more affordable for every family in America by driving down inflation. And President Trump will achieve those goals while championing clean air, clean water, and protecting our beautiful lands.
So this raises the question then, William, of what does this mean for President Biden's signature achievement on climate, the Inflation Reduction Act?
President Trump, one of his first actions was to issue an executive order that dealt specifically with terminating the Green New Deal. That's how he refers to all of these kinds of efforts. And that ordered all federal agencies to pause any of the money that was appropriated under the Inflation Reduction Act or the Infrastructure Act. They had to clarify later to say it was really only climate-related things, but that is still a large part of that bill. So this order now means that a lot of those projects that were underway all over the country and the jobs connected to them are on hold. That could be things like big battery manufacturing plants to a $5 billion loan to clean up school buses and make them electric. We talked to Julie McNamara. She's an analyst at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Here's what she said this means.
We've seen projects have to be stopped. We've seen companies starting to reconsider whether or not they'll move forward here. That is a terrible outcome for our country, and it has these long-lasting ramifications. And so by having this coordinated effort to send this chill that this is not a place that will be welcoming of new investment, it's a deep concern.
So there is some uncertainty as to how effective Trump will be at gutting that act, but this historic effort to ramp up batteries, wind, solar, nuclear, to address climate change, all of those things are in doubt.
And this is all unfolding as we're getting more warnings about the climate. Last month was the world's hottest January on record. Last year was the hottest year on record. Tell us more.
That's right. There's a new study out from climate scientist Jim Hansen. He was one of the first scientists to ring this alarm bell about climate back in the 1980s. He has a new paper out which is a bit of an outlier, but he has been vindicated very often in the past. His paper says that warming is accelerating faster than we anticipated, that the goal of the Paris Accords to hold warming below 2 degrees Celsius compared to industrial times, that is virtually out of reach, and that some of these more serious climate tipping points might be unavoidable. And whether you dismiss his paper or not, his concern is affirmed by the vast majority of scientists that our use of coal and oil and gas is changing this climate to a dangerous and unpredictable way. We talked earlier with Chris Field at Stanford's Woods Institute. Here's how he describes it.
The evidence for climate change and the human role in causing the warming that we've seen in recent decades is really overwhelmingly clear. There are no Democratic or Republican thermometers. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away. It just means we have a more serious problem to deal with by the time we finally get serious about addressing it.
Of course, President Trump doesn't think we need to do this. He thinks all of these concerns about climate change are exaggerated and overblown, and he is directing his administration and now the federal government to act accordingly.
William Brangham, our thanks to you as always.
Thanks, Jeff.